Hello everyone, welcome back for some more The Great Ace Attorney to Resolve. We are dealing with the death of Shamspeare, a Shakespeare. Who is a sham? We just got freed to actually examine around here, so let's do that. What's with the stage? This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it if you promise not to. If you promise to don... I was going to say not to, but no, he does. If you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if... Yo. Supportive. If that would help you achieve your goal. This I have to see. I hope there's art of that. That sounds cute. Now, that's interesting. It's a gas wall light, isn't it? Must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. Well, they do like their beans. They even put that shit on toast. Honestly, though, there's a lot of people who, like, make fun of eating beans on toast. But, like, there's nothing much better than taking, like, a piece of garlic bread. And if you're having, like, baked beans, you put them beans on that garlic bread. Oh, that's really good. Now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's much cozier, true. It's also massive hazard, but okay. I mean, I guess the gas isn't much better, really. What's this thing? And here we have another disproportionately large machine. Looks like a meter of some kind. The gas meter? Oh, yeah. This is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. What? That's insane. But then again, I guess it's not that different from the fact that I scan a QR code and manually pay it. I mean, I guess it's not that different. Just, you know, you have to have someone come into your house and take the money out. I see. Yes, now that you pointed it out, I can see there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here... That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for heats and lighting. What? I said heats and lighting. That's how shocked I was. That's seemingly nothing. So, if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change, because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. I am so looking forward to the end of paper and coin society. I hate it. I hate it so much. The fact that you have to have the right type of currency at any time. Whatever. Friggin', let's go to phones for everything. That's what it's like here in China. Everything's phones, and you might be like, well, what happens if your phone dies? Every store has free use power banks with every end on it. You plug it in for a sec, you pay, you go. And why don't you have a power bank with you? I don't know how people don't live without power banks. It's just like, it's just so much better. Although I will say that the ability to, like, we have, like, credit cards and stuff, but, like, no one takes them, which is a bit weird, right? That would also help. But if a society of QR codes and, you know, credit cards, hey, that'd be perfect, you know? I hate coins. They're the worst. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I would almost argue, stupid. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. Please don't use that phrase. I can't take that phrase correctly. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property, it's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh. What is it, Mr. Sato? You look closely. A number of the bricks are loose. Oh, yeah. Oh, they leave it so that slightly ajar so you can just poke them out. Ooh, and they're full of soap? What the frick? Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamsbury who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room. Look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What, outside? What the frick? That's a strange one. Alright, yeah, we can look at this again. Oh, it's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow last night. It would be cold. More importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? That's soap, it seems. It's more bars of soap. Maybe this guy really did have a thing for soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on the ledge outside the window? Yo, if this guy loves soap this much, wait till he learns about the amusement park entirely made for soap. That's right. It's over in Japan. It's called Soapland. That's a joke. That's a joke. Don't look it up. I have no idea. Did I say that? What soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on the ledge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window? Is that so that we can, like, push and pull the bricks out easier? But what? I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear, I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. What are we doing? Wait, are you hiding a coin in your soap? That used to be a thing. There used to be toys in soap. You would get soap, and in the inside was like, I had a Jar Jar Binks figure inside my soap. And it sounds like a great idea. It's like the kids will wash and they use the soap, and then when they're done, they get the toy, right? Two problems. One, you're a kid. You're just gonna, in one bath, you're gonna use up that entire soap. It's gonna be gone because you want that toy. Number two, what happens when the soap, like, melts away? Well, now you have exposed plastic. And now try rubbing that on your body. Uh-oh. Now you're literally having Jar Jar Binks's ear things scratch you, a wee child. It's almost as badly designed as the Jar Jar Binks lollipop. If you know, you know. Do you see? In the middle there, there's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. Is that the modern flag of Japan? I wonder. Because there's that other flag, which we don't use anymore. You know the one. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? Then what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? Cheap bar of soap. It's one of the two that were there. But there's also the expensive one. Let me check here. Oh no, this is the one with the thing. What is this? This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinamaru design of the Japanese flag. I expect this rather expensive soap. Doesn't seem likely, given who it belongs to. What am I supposed to get from this? Looks like a Tide Pod. Well, now I said that, now it looks kind of delicious. I understand why he ate it now. The king's outfit? Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow, they look out of place in this room with its grim, shady goings-on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. What? Not gonna happen, buddy. Oh, I think you'd be more suited to a feudal lord, a daimyo or such like. With a chanmage top knot? Every Japanese man wishes he had a chanmage. Really? Okay. Times I feel have changed. Oh, you'd look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chanmage and a sword? Oh yeah, now you'll experience some real discrimination when that happens. Wow. There's something else there? What's this? There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yeah, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Oh, and how he breaks them all the time. Executor Lord Venzeeks? It's Venzeeks, yes. Yes. He's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. Yeah, I'm not telling him that. Alright, what's this thing on the ground? What's this? It's a soap in the shape of Alberta, Canada. Looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you would be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there? Oh, yeah, no, she's right. And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. You better take this, just in case. Torn off end. The rest of it could not be located. Let's take a look-see at that. Can we look on the inside? Nothing in here? Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they? Yes. Whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging from the angle of the rip here, the person in question must have been right-handed. Miss Sasato! I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never. It's true. It's good to be well-read. Okay. Alright, are we up to the table? I think we're up to the table. Alright. Let's take a closer look. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. How young? Do we have an age? 31. Sasato, he's double your age. Failed actor renting a room in the lodging. I was going to say, you can tell that he will never get back up because he has a 2D drawing. Then I realized, oh wait, everyone has like 2D drawings. Do you suppose it was a... I mean, I guess that is young also, but... just weird to say. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder... Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Yeah, I don't know if King Enma would be happy with a British soul crossing over the river there, and he'd be like, nope, send that back. Nope, that's not my jurisdiction. Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for such an occasion such as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginning's Guide to Prayer for the Departed, the British Way. Oh. You tip your hat and say, in it? I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? It's quite big. Okay. That's it? Okay. One of the teacups that Mr. Shamspeare and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, The cups are both empty. That's true. So one was Mr. Shamspear's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Saseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Pair teacups have been added to the... They're even color coordinated. How lovely. There's a couple people that could be. First off, I don't see anything of note. Just the colors, mostly. Oh, wait, no, there's the color around the rim. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamspear was drinking from, then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh, really? I've never noticed before. You've never noticed? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. The Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture. And most of them are Japanese. I mean, there's also iced tea. This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down, too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I shall have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea. Okay. Oh, that actually got updated. That's good. That is important. That means that will be important in the trial. Anyways, who's talking to us? Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Oh, yes. Inspector Gregson! Back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low, being back in a cell again so soon. I'm sure... We should probably go and... What? What? This is so stupid. What are we doing? What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? The dead speak! Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. Nice pose. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed, oh happy day! Oh, bye. Hey, Ryunosuke, what's the most surprising franchise that, appeared in Tekken as a playable crossover character, Final Fantasy! Sorry. Okay. For some reason, I expected him to not be dead here. But that's also means his whole thing's for literally nothing? The fella isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. I like Shakespeare. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Shakespeare is really fun when you learn to just let go. Like, here's the thing with Shakespeare. Shakespeare invented so much of his own words and phrases and lingo. A lot of it is literally just stuff that he put in that it sounds good and to fit with the iambic pentameter, right? So because of that, if you read something and it doesn't make sense, just let it wash over you. Who cares? Come back later. Go with the flow, right? The sound is what matters. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shamspear, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment, and Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime, whatever that now was. Well, this case got infinitely weirder. Who's this guy with my hat? Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shamsphere did consume poison, as we deduced. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? Who's this guy? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Saseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me? Can we have a word? Oh. He looks like a tanuki with his bag. Do you see that? He just ran off. Like the pattern on the bag with how he looks. Is this man? Is his name going to be Tom Nookie? You can't do that. Animal Crossing took that joke. He just ran off. Badger D witness. Feel like I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I don't know. I do too, but I don't remember. I don't remember. Maybe when we see him, I will. Okay. Anyways, what's up with this? With the exception of the top floor where Mr. Mrs. Garrideb live, all the windows are bricked up. Stop with that phrase. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on a number of windows a property had. In order to pay less tax, the poor members of society filled in many of their windows. But the tax has been abolished, hasn't it? So windows could all be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done. Yes, that is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. Well, that's the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. I was trying to look at the green thing right there. I mean, that's the soap. We did look at it, I guess. I guess there's no real worry about seeing it, but it's like, I feel like there's more to the soap. There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrideb residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact. That one seems very warped, though, especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that may be the result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid that the rider may have been similarly afflicted. Is the joke trying to be that Mr. Garrideb didn't lose his foot in the war, but he just... like, he didn't get hurt in the war, he literally just had an accident on the bike? And there's a good chance Mr. Natsume's been practicing on this bicycle, I think. Oh, or that. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. Bikes aren't hard, he says, being screamed at by his family for 5 years when he was a little kid to, like, learn how to ride a bike properly. Wasn't fun. But at the same time, once I learned how to ride a bike, oh, the world was my oyster. The Garrideb household and Mr. Natsume's lodgings are in a prominent position there on the corner. Sometimes when I look at the building, I can't help feeling that it's on a bit of a slant. It does rather look as though it would collapse even in the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? All right, we're going back to that. I think I might have a hunch as to why Saseki-san is such a hunched back. Little gremlin on him. We got that. That. Down the street. London's blanketed in fog again today. The sky is covered in cloud. But if you look carefully in the distance, you can just make out the crystal tower being built. Oh yeah, there it is. I didn't even notice that there. I was not looking at that. Ah, the crystal tower, yes. The centerpiece of the great exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Everyone's talking about the everyone's talking about the great exhibition of London at the moment, it seems. Well, it's to be the largest event of its kind anywhere in the world, with technology and scientists from all over. I can't wait for it myself. It's gonna be the culminating case. It's gonna be the final case, for sure, right? They're setting it up to be the big thing. I think visiting students from the Far East like us will be granted entry? The last great exhibition that was held in London had more than 6 million visitors, it seems. And this time the British are determined to make it an even bigger success, to outdo the Paris exposition. I see. That's an incredible number of people. With so many people expected to attend, we should be easily able to slip in unnoticed. Maybe not dressed as you are, but there's always the honest approach of buying tickets to the main entrance, Mr. Naruhodo. Yeah, you could. But how are you even expected to buy tickets if you can't just, like, go to 7-Eleven and buy them, you know? Just go do it. William Robbins. Practical optician. Okay. Little snowfall. You can know that this is not from Japan because it is a 3-person snowman. In Japan, they do 2-person. Why has someone built this snow... Oh, well, are we doing this joke? Why has someone built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think? That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? It already has a perfectly good body. Oh, I just realized that she pulls it out of nowhere in this costume. Well, it's true that British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner. Really? What? And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man. I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British 2-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? I didn't even know that. What? Britain too? I've never heard this. Yo, British followers, sound off. Do you guys do 2 or 3-ball snowmen? I mean, the answer is probably you don't get enough snow to make a 3-ball snowman, but still. After all, real people do have 3 sections. Head, torso, and legs. You ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? Yeah, I've never heard of that for British people. Well, that's that for that. Okay, so... Oh, wow, we got a lot of places we can go to, huh? I think we should leave her be. Workplace of our dreams. Let's go over here and just see if anyone's here to talk with them. Right? 21st of February, Sholmes is sweet. Do we get more stuff? Yes, we do. Enormous machine takes up the entire desk, doesn't it? Really imposing. Hurley's great analytoscope, yes. You can analyze anything you want, you know. Never seen anyone actually using it. I think it's the same as before. Well, it's his invention, so I don't know how to operate it. Why don't you get to analyze its own operation, then? Runo, you're razor sharp today, aren't you? I think most of this will be the same. All sorts of on these shelves, chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and lots of things I've never seen before. All heaped up so high, I can't help feeling that the whole lot is going to topple over any moment. It looks as though it might topple, and yet it doesn't. The epitome of Mr. Sholmes' brilliance. I don't get it. As it happens, I'm quite well practiced when it comes to stacking shelves myself. Just the other day, a shelf in my office finally gave way under the strain, though. It looks as though it might topple, and it does. Yes, the epitome of your disarray. I really don't get it. Stradivarius. This is Sholmes' famous violin. One he found being sold for a song at a pawnbrokery. What's it called again? A Shoda something? Oh yes, this wonderful instrument features in The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. It's a world-famous Stradivarius. Stradivarius, Mr. Naruhodo. Stragivor. Are you even trying now? Well, we'll come back to this another time, I think. Bro's just like, you know what? I'm already speaking another language. I don't have to put in the effort. I do like this fireplace. It's one of the best things I've seen since we arrived in this country, in fact. Although, I do yearn for a Japanese kotatsu. Putting your legs under a warm, blanketed table is so comforting. True! That's why I bought one. Do be careful, Miss Naruhodo. Don't mistakenly put your feet into the fire, will you? You'd suffer terrible burns, you know. I worry sometimes about how Susato-san sees me. Yeah, he's not that dumb. He's dumb, but not that dumb. Curious how this enormous metal chest is being used as a coffee table. And even more curious to think that Iris's father's notes about Mr. Sholmes' case are inside it. You mustn't look in there, Runo. These notes are a secret between Daddy and me. Could you even call this a Chekhov's gun? I don't think you can. Because Chekhov's gun appears in Act 1 and then is used in Act 3. This is like, appears in Act 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and will be used in Act 10, you know? Mr. Sholmes is somehow in on the secret? Really tends to forget, you see, as soon as he solved a case, in fact. Once, when he read one of my manuscripts, we had a terrible argument about it. Never have I solved such a case, he said. He was absolutely adamant. Sometimes I wonder if he's from another planet, don't you? Yo, the alien Sherlock Holmes twist goes wild. Look at all... That's, I'm not gonna say that. No, that's fine. Look at these, all these mementos of Mr. Sholmes' past cases, you know. You know, Mrs. Sato's eyes still sparkle every time she lays eyes on them. But yours don't, do they, Runo? Well, I have read The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes now, by order of Mrs. Sato. But the trouble is, having seen the real thing in action, somehow the stories don't quite ring true for me. Well, he does solve the cases, in the end. I suppose so. Perhaps there's more to the great detective than meets the eye. Yo, the Transformer Sherlock Holmes arc goes wild. I'm just reading here in case there's funny stuff. Oh, look at her typing away! Mostly just for funny stuff, not for any lore. Well, not lore, but like in story. You know what I'm saying. Charming little shelf full of little charming little bottles. Oh yes, but don't touch any of those. They might explode. Ah, charming shelf full of charming bottles full of charring ingredients. You know, Hurley mistakenly drank from one of them the other day. What? And how? I think he was lucky, though. He hasn't exploded yet. Mystery can be a very hazardous occupation. Living with Mr. Sholmes is a hazardous occupation, if you ask me. It always strikes me how pretty and neatly arranged his tea set is. It's my favorite one. In fact, I think it's high time for afternoon tea, and I think it's high time for me to take a sip of my water. I'm trying to drink more water. Wait there, I'll fetch the special blend I prepared for today. Oh, Iris, you do love your tea, don't you? She looks so happy at the prospect. And after you've drunk it, I'll collect some experimental data, if that's all right. So what is she about to make me drink? Buddy, you're gonna be peeing into a bottle. That's a nothing. Nothing there. If I remember correctly, this large and imposing lump of iron is called a tiperator. To think that every single one of the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes blossomed from this very machine. It's such a dreamy thought. I actually had a go on it the other day. Metal bars that move when you hit the keys got all tangled up somehow, and that made Iris angry. Mr. Naruhodo, you're ruining my dreamy thoughts. Please don't do that again. Ugh, I've made Susato-san angry as well. Iris? That's incredible concentration, that is. I find it quite remarkable how she can focus on so many different things at once. Perhaps I should try drinking more of her herbal tea. The blend third from the right would be good for you, Runo. Oh, Iris? This girl is destined for great things, I'm sure. Dang, she's going in, huh? Alright, that was fun. Anyways, our office. Whoa. Is it just me or is everything gone? What? Have we not established the stuff here? What's going on? Is it... What? When is this from then? What? I feel like I'm going crazy. Why is there nothing here? These tanks are for keeping sea creatures. They're called aquariums, and they were all the rage in London at one time, apparently. Yes. The English are so clever coming up with the idea of having ocean life on display in the home. And it means you always have an emergency midnight feast on hand, too. I'm not sure that's really the idea. I heard that there's another room behind that door. Yes, it's my bedroom, Naruhodo-san, as you well know. Shall I help you unpack your things? Oh, we're still not unpacked. I forgot how early this is, I guess. That's very kind, but no thank you. Your luggage looked very heavy. Are you sure I can't help you move it? That's very kind, but really, no thank you. The young maiden's private chamber is a place of bittersweet secrets, you know. The only secret I have is the 5-yen banknote hidden on the backside of my Daruma doll. Yeah, okay, I forgot how early this case is then. Alright, we don't need to converse here. This is just for, like, what to do. Oh boy, it's time. Time to meet with the Garridebs. Well, this looks about the same. I can't tell anything different right from the get-go. Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top-floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garrideb's the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It's quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garrideb as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder, you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garrideb? Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an... I thought of dead last. I'm like, oh. Do you not know? But no, dead loss of an active chap in the ground floor room. These were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? What a curmudgeonly fellow. Anyways, first off, your room. What do we got here? There's a single apron drawing on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. Look. No, Mr. Naruhodo. That's a real cannon. I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. And who's the enemy, Mr. Garrideb? Please explain to us who this enemy is. Love to know. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? There's always a war, son. In fact, some say we never ended it. It's like, oh no. That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garrideb? Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know? Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs. Very tactful, Mrs. Sato, very tactful indeed. Ah, yes, those enormous mortar shells. Quite something seeing them up close, isn't it? Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garrideb? Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't do it justice, does it? Well, one of these little incidents one of these has little incidents when one... oh, I see what we're saying. Well, one has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my little mishaps on display. Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? Medal. Good to see Mr. Garrideb's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, for distinguished participation, if you remember. Yes, I remember, because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know it to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know. Like Devil May Cry? That's a Capcom thing. Devil May Care? What did you get up to? Son, there's some things in the military you don't ask and don't tell about. Well, on the past... Oh, I was joking, but it might be real. On the past now, of course, and best left there. Best not. I want to know now. You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Garrideb. That old portrait, eh? Drawn by an art student who used to rent the room downstairs. Oh, you look so wonderfully young and courageous and strong. Yes, well, the chap presented it to me one day and asked if I'd let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So, you did, presumably? I bally well did not. That's supposed to be bloody well did not. It's meant to be for sure. Oh. A portrait is a portrait, but rent is rent, eh? Yet it's still there proudly on the wall. You at least give him a little discount. We know what that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clean that mess up for some time now. Oh dear. This must be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say. People talk about twists of fate and whatnot. Now, this is a twist and a half, a rotten show all around. I'm really struggling with everything that's happened. This looks normal. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of my wand, don't you know? I don't think... Is that real? To Google. Is that a real thing? Ah, I dropped my controller! No, my Pro Controller! These things are expensive as frick. I've had it since launch. Battle of my wand. Oh yeah. The Battle of my wand. July 1880 was one of the principal battles of the Second Anglo-Afghan War. Yeah, no, I don't know anything about this. I didn't even know there was an Anglo-Afghan War. Yeah, interesting. You learn something new every day. The experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for, the whole bally company. We were taking a real pounding from their cannons. Oh, well, what are they saying about the don't ask, don't tell? All we could do was run for our lives. Oh, I thought the story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. That's not what a lawyer often finds himself under fire wants to hear. Yeah. That's an impressive collection of cakes on that fancy silver cake stand there. I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated in here as well. Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know? Oh. Time has stood still. That's an interesting phrase. Oh, yeah, I guess it's... Because, like, you learn the language, but you pick up idioms naturally. Might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. Window. There's a good view over the wintry East End from up here. An impressively gray scene. Really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below, Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. And the pavement where poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in this building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it? I suppose all foreign cultures seem strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel on arriving in Japan and seeing people with a chanmange topknot. Well, that's a good point. They'd be like, this is the best, and I'm now dedicating my life to only living and loving this. Oh, a copy of Rancid magazine! The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful? Naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. But having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Miss Sato. Perhaps it should be reflected in the stories. Make no mistake, Mr. Naruhodo, I intend to snuff out that sort of public opinion we just heard personally. I don't see where Mr. Sholmes' untainted reputation comes from now. Anyways, hi, let's talk. What happened this morning? It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. Well, I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? Man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Well, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Just where is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? He just wants the nice moon-like shape of his head to be seen, you know? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found yourself on the far side of the door. Tell me about this man. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspear, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspear took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a body screwed loose. It's so hard to choose which category Saseki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. My God, lad, his name is Shamspear. Right if he plays the old bard myself, you know? Romeo and Hamlet and all that, that's... It's not what it is, but... Yes, William Shakespeare's England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. I do want to go to Stratford-upon-Avon. That's on my list of places to go. I have a big Britain tour I want to go to, and it's like everything around London. I've done London. I don't think I ever need to do London again, but I do want to go around it. He's known as Sao in Japanese. He's known as Sword Art Online in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. I was told that at some point. When did we hear this? We heard this at some point. I forget when. Wait, no, wasn't it in, it was in one of the bonus parts of this, wasn't it? I think so, yeah. Seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Seems like someone was too heavy-handed there. Oh, is Ace Attorney talking about heavy-handed localization? There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspear must have had much in common. Nah, I think those are two very different schools of thought. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really, how rude. It's not murder. Bro's alive. Yesterday's events. After Mr. Natsume's... Oh, but then again, there's a chance that if you came up here first, you might not have learned that. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between them and this morning? Or between then and this morning? Well, now, one must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark out already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Garrideb noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamspear got back, and the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end some time after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Mrs. Sato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrideb, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly.
Not a big fan of stairs, not with his blasted leg.
And how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenants on the ground floor, I mean.
Ah!
That's a very good point. Can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? Oh, is he a freak?
I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I?
Then how did you know, Mr. Garrideb?
It's the gas, woman.
The gas tells me everything. I mean, I know what he's saying, but this sounds like, oh god, the worms! The worms are telling me to kill him, the worms! The gas? Speaking gas. What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything?
Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes.
Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. The gas company supplies gas to the properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too.
Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen?
Well, obviously the room would get brighter.
Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment.
What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual, and that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it? That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable.
Jolly good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish lamps up here and they glow brighter in the rest of the house.
Right, I see. So by watching the flicker in the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere.
You've got it.
Oh, of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever.
In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrideb. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh well, nothing to it, really. Can't really see how that's going to help us with the case either.
But I'd like to know why Mr. Garrideb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. I think he still thinks he's at war. I think it might be that thing.
You know, son, that you say to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. It's like, what do you mean by that? You know, you might rent a room out to Oriental and one of them queer folks, and, well, you know what I'm saying. It's like, Garrideb, you fought in the war, but you can't say this stuff.
Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. Good idea.
Is there anything we can present?
What do you know about this soap? Mr. Garrideb, could I show you the soap?
Been quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. I'm afraid I'm rather tired. Haven't really got the energy in the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time, then. Alright. Let's get a double check. Okay.
What's the sultry thing fall off animation there? Like, you see it like slips down and then back up, and then whoop, there it goes. Okay, so yeah, I'm guessing nothing really else. Nope, he really doesn't care. Alright. Well,
Onward to prison. Prison cell where the defendant, Mr. Saseki Natsume, is being held. He's spending so much time in it, he'll start calling the place home soon. Oh no. Oh no. Buddy, you almost look like you're doing a raging demon. What the saddest raging demon. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Oh, yes. What is he? Tell me. Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sorta hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news! Oh? The victim we all thought was dead has come back to life again! Now, the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder! That's great, isn't it? Mr. Natsume? It's terrible! Oh. I'm stuck in this cell suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. Sorry to hear that. That's selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy, William. Well, seems likely that Mr. Shamsphere was never actually dead in the first place. Ah, yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh! Oops! Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamsphere, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand of a lawyer present. Who do you think I am? Please, please, Mr. Natsume. We need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? Let's talk, buddy. I can't even examine here. What happened? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night, then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell, but Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday. Case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized if she ended up with a knife in her back? It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. It feels almost like 6 months. Don't worry about it, Susato. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary back to my lowly lodgings, and that evening at 9:30, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamsphere. So you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong. I'd never been to his room before. It's the first time. He said, well, you're here, you might as well experiment. And I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that. It's like, oh, okay, that's... Then what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion, but he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. Well, that ties in with what Mr. Garrideb said. The victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift. It was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet, who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. Was Bro power scaling Romeo and Juliet? Was Bro like, Juliet can one-shot Romeo, no diff, if she had the Mangekyo Sharingan and Gold Experience Requiem. Wait,
Wait. Has someone power scaled Shakespeare? Power scaling Shakespeare. Who's the strongest in all the Shakespeare verse? Who is the most skilled fighter in Shakespeare's plays? Hector, Cornelius Macduff, and Henry for round 1. Oberon and Prospero for round 2. Wow, I actually straight up get Fate right from the top. That's crazy. That's really crazy considering, like... Well, you know why? It's because I have my search history on. It just knows. It's like you're probably thinking Fate. I'm like, I'm actually not. I'm sure.
Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare!
And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shamspeare's tea?
No, never. Not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me.
I somehow knew he'd be on Team Juliet.
And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit, I swear it categorically.
Flamboyant? Dang, so he really was. Okay. Alright. Anyways, tell me more about your cursed existence, fellow. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence.
I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here at Great Britain for a year now, and in that time, I've learned it's no place for me.
It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture.
There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh.
No, but this is kind of real. See, it's funny though, because like I had much less of a problem coming to China and living here. And, you know, everyone is obviously like surprised. Chinese in China, what? But then I went back home and I got on the plane and I arrived back in, it was Vancouver. And I was like, there's white people. And it actually, like, my body was like, what's going on? I don't know, something about him, man. Something about him just, like, it freaks me out. Because, like, I know that's, like, they're part of me. Not fully, but part. It's like, whoa, scary. Anyways,
That's the impression.
I can't... I read that line, and all I think about is Digimon the movie.
That's the impression that I get.
Then you get the... Right?
That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room.
That's also real. When I first arrived here, I was really scared to actually leave my room. Also, COVID was going on. But then even after COVID kind of lifted, I was like, I didn't want to go out much. And then I sort of realized, oh wait, exploring and stuff is fun.
Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember. And then, 1 week ago, I moved into Riot Road.
But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable.
Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money. It spoke to me.
The rent?
Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed.
Cursed? I don't like the suckling motion he does in this.
Like, do you see that? He's like, Mama, Mama, I need my milkies.
Right? Like, it's kind of what he's doing. Cursed? How so?
The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there.
Oh no.
He was only a young man, but one morning, he was found dead and no one could explain why.
Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that.
I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning.
Brave or blinkered? I've never heard that phrase before.
But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was.
Gosh, was it really so awful? Tell me about this history. How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened?
At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. What if it's just Mr. Garrideb who's actually spying on him?
Do you think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you?
No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place.
Nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean?
All the souls who've died in that room, I lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me.
That really is horrible.
Also, I think Mr. Garrideb actually didn't think the war ended. Oh no. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. Oh, the very same night that Mr. Shamspeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room.
You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible.
Yes, you're right. I know it, and that's why I'm already searching for the next room with history to call home.
I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Oh, Sasato-san knows how to make the man listen.
Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well.
You mean Mr. Garrideb?
Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again.
Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Ah, perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. Must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms.
What do you mean, he pays so much attention to the gas lamps?
Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything.
Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well.
What's important is that Mr. Shamspeare isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released.
Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right.
Excuse me, who's this? Oh, hey. Inspector Gregson. I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news.
Oh,
Which do you want first?
always, every time, the bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle.
Right, well, in that case, the good news is...
Huh?
Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way.
Then why did you ask me my preference?
As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, was just unconscious. He's come around now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we've managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume?
Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell.
Sorry, no, that's not on the cards.
What?
Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shamspeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear.
You don't mean...
I'm sorry to say I do, yes, he's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. My sweet poison, did he seek it to end my life? Oh. Oh, are we actually doing Romeo and Juliet? Great, I didn't even put that together. That wicked caitiff, Saseki Natsume, you know... Wait. That wicked caitiff, Soseki Natsume. That's like 12 syllables? It's not really iambic pentameter. No! I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations.
No!
That's funny, with the H at the end, it becomes Japanese. And so, Once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. Which we'll get to next time. That to be continued took way too long for some reason. We'll get to that next time. All right, hey, perfectly timed. Court awaits us in the next part. I'll see you guys next time for the adventure, the memoirs of the clouded Kokoro, part 1. Next time, guys, we'll see you then for some more Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Ciao. Yo.